My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today what we're doing is we're going to give you a market update on what's going on across the entire state of Alaska, specifically on the residential stuff. So we're going to be looking at Anchorage, MatSu Valley, Fairbanks, and Kenai, all in the residential stuff. So lots of great information here. Year to date, it's been a very entertaining kind of a market to be watching. So we'll be jumping into that in just a minute. If you haven't done so already, do make sure you give this video a like. If you haven't done so, do subscribe. And without further ado, let's jump into today's overall market update for Alaska. First market we're going to check out is what's going on in the Anchorage market. Now over here, we're seeing that the inventory's pretty much been cut in half for where it was this time last year. And it wasn't a whole lot of inventory last year to begin with either, because we were right during the time period we were starting to feel the impacts from the pandemic. So we're seeing that inventory pretty much cut in half. I think it was around 619 inventory this year. It's about 339. So pretty much in half. Now the second thing we want to know is how many properties are selling. Proportionally, we might have a lot less inventory, but proportionally, if we have way less properties selling anyway, who cares? Well, what we're seeing here is that the number of properties that actually sold, even though we've got about a half the inventory, it's still up by roughly a third, as you can see over here. So that's pretty significant. Number of overall properties in Anchorage has gone up by about 100 or so properties for this past month. Wrapping up Anchorage, what we're seeing is that the average sold price year to date is going up significantly, because we're seeing over here average sold price is roughly about $422,000. This time last year it was roughly about $397,000. So we're seeing a pretty significant uptick in the overall year to date average sold price. So that's pretty significant. Jump more into that during the summary though. Let's take a look at what's going on in the MatSu Valley now. Now over here, we're seeing that again, inventory's pretty much been cut in half from where it was the year before, following a very similar trend to what we see over in Anchorage. So inventory in the MatSu Valley pretty much cut in half. It's even more so if you're comparing it to the year before that, back in 2019. So inventory is down in the MatSu Valley. Now the next thing that we need to look at is the units sold in the MatSu Valley. So what we see over here is that we have about 198 homes that have sold, whereas this time last year it was 158, thereabouts. So we're seeing that there's an uptick in the number of properties that have sold, even though inventory, similar story as Anchorage, is way down low. Now let's take a look and see what's going on in the average sold price. Not surprisingly, we are seeing an increase in the average sold price in the MatSu Valley. Matter of fact, it went from about $301 to about $338,000, I should say, $1,000 is the average year to date. So what we see is that the overall increase is over 12% year over date for the average sold price in the MatSu Valley. That stacks up very well against Anchorage. We'll talk about why that is in the summary though. Let's take a quick break here real quick. Usually I'd be giving you some real estate tip right about now or directing you towards the podcast that I host, Alaskan Journey. Do go check it out anyway. But I just wanted to kind of pitch a new idea out to you today. It's an idea I'm kind of toying around with, and that is using the channel here and making it a little bit more of a vlog and bring you along with me as I sell real estate on the last frontier. If you'd be interested in seeing a little bit more of that style being brought into here, certainly comment down below. We might go and have a poll on here also to make it easier to kind of tally it in. If that is something that you're interested in, then we'd be interested and looking into that and seeing if it'd be worth everybody's time. So, but yeah, do make sure you put your thoughts, comments, objections, so on and so forth to the idea of us moving more towards kind of a vlog setup or creating a separate channel for that. And we'll tally them up from there. Now let's go and finish today's market update. Let's go and take a look at what's going on in the Kenai Peninsula now. Now, just as a whole, what we're seeing is the number of properties on the market is, like the other markets we've seen up to this point, has definitely taken a dip. It went from about 386 the year before down into the 200s. So we see that there's definitely a drastic decrease in the inventory that's available in the Kenai Peninsula. And this is anecdotally true for some of the folks I've been working with who've been looking down there. So inventory is down on the Kenai Peninsula. Now, what we do see also is that the number of properties that actually sold is about doubled from where it was the year before. Last year, we sold about 46 properties right around this time. This year, it's about 81. So roughly about doubling for the properties that have sold, at least for the past month. Finally, let's take a look and see what's going on as far as the average sold price for properties in the Kenai Peninsula. Now, over here, what we're seeing, average sold price has gone up modestly, just under 3%. And that's about what we would expect with a normal market. And I would expect to actually see it higher than what we're seeing, just because we do see that across the board, inventory is really low. So I would expect to see that a little higher, but kind of a modest increase from what we're seeing here. So not too bad. We're usually around 275-ish is where we're going to see average sold price down in the Kenai. Let's check out and see what's going on over in Fairbanks now. So this smaller market, but it's very interesting to me, and I'll explain why. So we have about just over 100 properties that are on the market, and just about 40 homes are on the market now. So about a third, less than a half of what we see on the market usually about this time last year. And that's even smaller of a fraction if we compare it to the year before here. So yeah, inventory is definitely low for the Fairbanks. Now, Fairbanks is the only market that's done this, and that is where we actually had less properties sell in this market for the past month than it did in the previous year. Because there were 28 homes that sold in the Fairbanks market last year this month. Now it's 24. So only time I've seen that in the statistics recently. So that's something that kind of stands out to me. Now, talking about Fairbanks, average sold price, this is insane. So we see about $251,000 was the average year to date this year, average sold price. What we see now is it's about $289,000. So that's over 15% increase year to date average sold price. So that is enormous, is what we're seeing, at least for the average sold price. So looking specifically at Fairbanks, a good explanation for that might be that that's a smaller market, keep in mind. So it's a smaller market, and with Eielson, we do have a lot more people that are going to be moving into the area to kind of support the base and the mission up there. So we're seeing more of an influx from there, and we're not seeing an increase in the building just because the cost of lumber is so high. So that's really one big explanation specifically for Fairbanks, why we see it just exploding over there. Let's go and jump into the summary now. So looking at Anchorage, it's going to be kind of more of the same. Inventory's low, the average sold price is up, and units sold is up despite the inventory being down. So what we're seeing over here is, if you're a buyer, try to avoid the really, really hot points if you possibly can. Anecdotally, I am starting to see signs that it's starting to slow down a little bit. That might be more to do with just buyers getting tired of getting beat up when they're making a bunch of offers and having to compete on every single one, because it feels like a knockdown, drag-out fight for every offer that you're making right now. That being said, though, there's still houses out there. The interest rates are good enough where it justifies it, and being able to get out there. And if you can find a good house, it's going to be an interest rate you're going to brag about to people for years. For a seller, there's no reason not to try to jump in and take advantage of this. Looking at the MatSu Valley, it's going to be the same as what we're seeing over in Anchorage. Only big difference on this one is that the rate at which the average sold price is increasing is about double for what we see in Anchorage. And this, to me, is kind of an interesting thing to be watching, because I'm starting to see the average sold price for the MatSu Valley is starting to go up, and it might actually be matching average sold price for properties in Anchorage. Hopefully not in a couple of years, but at some point it's very likely that's just going to be a reality. And looking at the Kenai, pretty similar story as what we're seeing with the other markets. Fairbanks is really the interesting one, but partly that has to do with what we said before with Eielson expanding their mission and also having not having a whole lot of building going on. So this has been your market update for the entire state. It continues to be a pretty interesting market. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, certainly feel free to reach out to me. Best way to get a hold of me is going to be through my Facebook page. The link for that is going to be in the description section down below. If you're thinking about moving up here, definitely check out my relocation guide. Explanation for how to download that going to be up above in a link here. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.